Coming up is our next meeting on December 29th at 1 o'clock. It is a public meeting and you are all welcome to attend. You are all welcome to ask questions during the meeting, and as well, all welcome to put in your 2 cents to the work group, who will be generating final comments and recommendations at the end of the work group in December. So after listening to experts in the field and to you, our members, SDAN's come up with several recommendations. The first one is about overnight supports. As you all know, the 2018 waiver renewal eliminated coverage for overnight supports for people who self-direct, except through a supported living service. And that new policy sort of evaporated the self-directed employer authority and ability to choose their own employees for all but 40 hours of the day in a 168-hour week. Our recommendation is to require DDA to reinstate that full employer authority for personal supports for self-directed participants, including those with an established need for overnight supports, and also those who are either living independently or in their family homes. And finally, to require DDA to remove that 82-hour limit that is currently on personal supports. Next, we've been working very hard about removing competency assessments and the designated rep or authorized representative, any kind of requirement for that. And that really figures most prominently in the second part of our presentation today, the majority of our presentation. We worked with DDA on the participant agreement and the family of staff form to try to eliminate any requirement to have a designated representative or an authorized representative, and instead to have the participant direct how their services go and who is helping them or assisting them to do the employer and budget authority tasks that are required. So another recommendation is to make sure that eliminate all competency assessments for participants. The next one is to ensure adequate services from support brokers to give equity and access, and to establish a higher number of hours. We're recommending 40 hours a month instead of the 4. So in order for participants, as an on-needed basis, so in order for participants to get what they actually need. We're also recommending that the state invest in additional training for CCSs who are at this point overburdened and sometimes at this point missing in action. We also asked for an expansion of transportation to cover specialized vehicles, to cover mileage for specialized vehicles that are paid for by the family, I guess, but maybe driven by staff. So excuse my noise in the background. And then individual family goods and services has been severely restricted, and we're recommending to restore the flexibility in that, remove the $5,000 cap, and instead base it on a person-centered need. And lastly, to allow participants to access their plans and budgets on the LTSS platform, so that to make sure that it accurately reflects team discussions and to track its progress. As you all know, we can't see once it's gone to the CCSs. So there needs to be some kind of way for individuals to track progress and see that everything is the way they intended it to be. So with that little update and the final version of that going out via email to you sometime in the next few days, just going to keep on with the meeting notes here. We are planning to talk to you a little bit more, and please stay muted. 12:30, Rhonda's coming on. Questions in the chat box, please, and it's not too early. I see there's already some things going on over there. Not too early to add your questions in. I am not seeing closed captioning. Would I, Ginger?
Yep, it's coming up on my screen.
Okay, cool. And so let's just do a backwards thing here, a little poll to see who we have here today. Ginger, you wanna, oh, there you go. So if you wouldn't mind just, wow, people are doing it fast. All right. Everybody get a chance to answer the poll? All right, should we close it, Ginger? What do you think?
Is there any possibility for a question right now? Is there any possibility for a quick question?
Sure, it would be better to put them in the.
Well, are iPhones, are the chat boxes and all this available on iPhones? Because I can't see any of this.
That is an excellent question.
Yeah, that's where I'm having difficulty. I can't respond to anything because I'm tuned in using my phone and my earbud.
Gotcha. I don't know the answer. Ginger, might you know?
I don't know how to do it. I know it's in there somewhere, but it's buried. So
I guess I will tell you that I think it will be, you can shoot us an email. And Ginger, if you wouldn't mind putting that, well, it's info@marylandsds.org.
Well, Colette Jackson just typed in that she's using an iPhone and she can see the chat. So
maybe Colette, can you tell us how? Oh, it says, Irene says, click on where it says quote more.
Quote more. Okay, hold on.
Quote more, unquote.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that right now, and I'm just going to leave it as big.
Okay,
I sent
so you can always
email. I
email us and we will
to
pass
you,
on the
Alicia.
questions too. Okay, perfect. That's perfect. Thank you.
Did you received a text question?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yep. Okay.
I will mute again.
Yep. Thank you. All right, can we go on to the next slide, Ginger? So just again, I wanted to thank you all for your support on our bills last legislative session. The House, we have had this, I guess I jumped ahead of myself. The House of Delegates has had the summer study session related to the issues in our last year's bill. We are making recommendations. I went through some of those earlier, and we will be sending them to you via email in the next week. Next slide. In the interim period, again, I want to mention the December 29th at 1 o'clock will be the next and I believe final work group meeting, and you all are welcome to attend. There will be a public link we'll send out via email as soon as we get it. Those have typically been pretty much at the last minute, the day before, but keep your eyes open for that. And again, after you've gotten our recommendations, if you have anything to tell us and or want to to write something to the work group, you are welcome to do that as well. So I'm going to get on to the main purpose of this meeting, really, which is to talk about the participant agreement. We have been working with DDA for, advocating for 2 years. We know that there's anxiety in the air about these new forms, and, a fear exists from lack of experience with the form and maybe just a not quite understanding of how to fill things out. So we're hoping that Monday's DDA work session helped, and that having Rhonda here for us specifically today will clear up some of those questions. We did ask Rhonda who to speak to, since obviously SDAN can't answer everybody's questions. And it looks like they're referring people to your CCSs. And if that doesn't work, regional leads in the offices. We would, however, like to hear about things that you're not getting answers to. So if there's a lot of that happening, or you're not getting an answer that you feel was responsive, then please do let us know via email at info@marylandsds.org. So the participant agreement now does have an option for a team approach, so that people on the team can support the participant in the manner that that participant chooses. There are 4 options. I'm sure you all know that since you've been reading it over. But do be mindful that if you sign as a designated representative, which I believe to be option number 3 in the participant agreement, that will lessen the participant's control, and the designated representative themselves and their family. And I think the next slide, can I see the next slide? Yep, go back. The family actually is your spouse. So if you're a parent, the spouse and the participant's siblings, that's the definition that DDA uses for family. So if you choose option 3 as a designated representative, it does lessen the participant's control and gives pretty much everything to that designated representative. And then that designated representative, their spouse, and the participant's siblings cannot work as paid staff. Obviously, they can do gratuitous work, but they cannot work as paid staff. Does that make sense to everyone? I see a question, guardians considered family. Guardians is a separate designation. A guardian could be family, but doesn't have to be family. So I know there's some confusion about that. For example, you may be a parent and a guardian, but a guardian does not have to be a family member. So I hope that helps. Option number 2 is a choice to have somebody's legal guardian take over the role. Option 1 is the participant themselves, that they are running the show and they don't need, excuse me, any help. Option number 4 gives the most flexibility to a participant. I should take ownership of that, in my opinion, and allows the participant to choose to ask for assistance with any of the tasks from a member of their team. So that if they either can't or don't want to do something or can't do something, and they wish to ask a member of their team to assist with that, option number 4 would be the way to go. Let's talk about the family of staff briefly. Next slide. There has been a family of staff form for a very long time. As I understand it, it hasn't been used by all CCSs, and it isn't in all person-centered plans that are currently approved. But this family of staff form is super important right now. If anybody was if anybody was brought on during the Appendix K, family of staff form will need to be completed before December 31st in order to keep getting paid. And this must be completed every year as a part of your annual plan going forward. So at this point, I'm going to just ask Tracy if she wants to say anything specifically about the deadline and such. If you do, you don't have to.
Sure. So we're working from DDA's guidance. I'm sure just as MedSource, where December 31st is the deadline for all Appendix K authorities that are terminating on that date. So that's our plan, and we've been communicating that externally to all stakeholders via email blast, and sometimes directly to participants who and their teams who will be affected by that. So we encourage you to keep an eye on our communications if you're not sure if it applies to you.
Thank you. One of the questions that we've had, and I just wanted to get your take, and I think we'll ask Rhonda this as well when she comes on. People are asking if family members are specifically outlined in an approved plan, would they still need to fill out the form?
I believe at this time, the intent is that if it was someone who was cleared to work before the Appendix K flexibilities by virtue of the previous family of staff form or somewhere in the plan, we're still keeping those folks going forward, of course, because they had prior authorization. But as new plans are being done, we hope that the team will work to update the family of staff form on, including everyone going forward from that point. But anyone cleared under Appendix K provisions needs to submit the family staff form in order to continue.
Okay, even if they are in, since the Appendix K addition or add in, they have a new approved plan. So you wouldn't know that then, so you would still need the form. Is that what you're saying, Tracy?
It'll be good to have the form no matter what. So if you're just
Okay.
unsure, go ahead and submit the form. I don't think there's any harm in submitting the form, but if we have the form, the previous version of the form on file, or it was in a previous version of the plan, we have that on record as well. And that would
Okay.
have all been prior to Appendix K provisions.
Very good. Thanks, Tracy, for filling us in. I am seeing a few things in the chat box. Somebody said, does family of staff end on December 31st, 2021? And the answer is no. By virtue of the waiver, family and guardians can work as paid staff under certain circumstances. And if you look at the participant agreement and the family of staff form, I think they pretty well tell you under what circumstances and what assurances you have to give. In other words, you have to do the job that is required, and you have to meet certain requirements. So I just wanted to let somebody know family can maintain being paid staff if that's in the best interest of the participant, what the participant desires. There is no end to that. The end of December 31st is you won't get paid if you don't put the family of staff form in. Somebody else is asking if the participant agreement is required moving forward or for all plans by December 31st. I don't believe there's a December 31st deadline for the participant agreement. And I do believe, and we can ask Rhonda this to be sure, that a participant agreement will be part of future person-centered planning. So Liz, are there any other questions we can answer quickly before Rhonda comes in? Okay, next slide. There we go. All right, so let's give a scan to the questions, and then when Rhonda joins us in a few minutes, we can move to her. There is a lot of conversation here about rep pays, can't be paid staff, but that's not written in the waiver anywhere.
I think, Alicia, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think the most
go ahead.
important question that we need to, might want to, you had mentioned it earlier before Rhonda joins us, is about was how does the team handle relatives paid at staff to not have conflicts of interest? And you had said to be sure there's someone on your team who can, can play that role, so there isn't that conflict of interest.
Right. So the DDA state is understandably concerned about any possibility of fraud and keeping things on the up and up, as are we, right? We want this program to maintain its excellent status. And so because no one really should be signing their own timesheet, option number 4 on the participant agreement gives the participant, if the participant can sign, then you really have no issue. If the participant isn't signing and you have a single parent, for example, who is getting paid, you would need to have a third party on your team somebody who would be able to assist with and sign the timesheets on the participant's behalf. Could be a support broker, as far as we know. It could be a family friend, but under no circumstances should anybody sign their own timesheet. So the bigger your team is, obviously, the more eyes are on the whole running of the program, and that it's going to be, more brains better than less brains theory. An expansive of team first of support for the participants, probably a good idea. So I guess that's what people have done so far. Is you can sign, if you have a 2-parent household and both parents are working, you can sign each other's, but you really need to have a third party person, review them. So some people are using support brokers to review and submit. So I'll offer that as an option. So there's a lot more. Anything else, Liz, in the?
Yeah, I'm trying to, I think.
Oh, here's one.
Most I can address in the chat, but go ahead.
Okay, does a family member who is a paid support broker only and not a DSP need to complete CPR and first aid? Yes, support brokers do actually need to complete first aid and CPR by December 31st, 2021. Apparently that has been in the waiver for a couple of years now, and is being enforced by the end of this year. So if you are a support broker, you will need to have CPR and first aid by the end of the year.
Yeah, we asked DDA to send out a memo on that.
Right. The other piece, I guess we should say, if a family member is a support broker, then no other family members can work as staff either. So what holds for the designated representative also holds for a support broker who is a family member. So if dad is the support broker, mom and siblings cannot be paid staff. So if a family member wishes to be paid staff, then you would need to hire a third-party support broker. Does that make sense?
Right.
Just skimming through here. So somebody says a coordinator advised because their wife and I are legal guardians. Okay, I'm not sure I understand that. Cannot get paid. Yeah, guardians can get paid with the certain assurances that are on the participant agreement and the family of staff form. So guardians can be paid. I understand family of staff can only work a maximum of 40 hours. So that's another stipulation, but they can work as staff. So perhaps your coordinator didn't understand that correctly. Anybody else, Liz? Oh my, there's 16 new messages I didn't see yet. So somebody did ask, are immediate family members allowed to work more than 40 hours per week? And I believe that is a no. There may be some provision with DDA approval. Yes, I think you're right, Peg. But typically it is not allowed. Somebody asked about SSI versus SSDI rep pays, and it wouldn't matter one or the other. Rep pays, it's a separate program. So rep pays for SSI or SSDI don't really have anything to do with DDA eligibility to be paid staff.
I think there's a confusion with CFC, because in CFC, representative payees cannot work as paid staff, but that doesn't.
And neither can guardians, right?
I believe so. So those programs are under a different section of the law, and you can't necessarily assume that the things that apply to those also apply to DDA. They're different programs.
Thank you for that that clarification. So yes, the updated participant form is needed at the annual review, and it can be sooner if you wanted to invoke one of the options on there. You can always fill it out beforehand. So that's definitely an option. Just reading through here. Okay, somebody said they were being told by their CCS that if a person can't do it all that's required, or family can't do it for free in self-direction, that they don't belong in this program. And that is not correct. We at SDAN and our majority of our members believe anyone can self-direct with the right supports, the proper supports. And that can come from your CCS, from your support broker, family, friends, participant. But no, a participant does not have to do it all themselves. And here comes Rhonda. So let's turn it over. Hey, Rhonda. I think. Hey, Rhonda.
Rhonda, are you here?
Hi, yes, thank you.
Excellent. We are delighted to have you here. We're having some questions, but I thought we'd give you a chance to do any kind of opening statement if you would like to.
Sure, absolutely. So just to, Alicia, make sure that I'm supporting what the request was. I believe we were asked to review the form and then to answer some questions. Is that correct?
That would be good if you could do a very brief review, hit the highlights, and then we'd love to spend the rest of the time having you, make everybody a little less anxious about the questions they have in filling the forms out. That would be awesome.
Great. So I first wanted to start with that it's a pleasure to join you guys today to review the family of staff form and the participant agreement, to include some questions that Alicia, you had shared with us, right? And before beginning the review, I wanted to share an update and some important comments. First, we had the opportunity to meet with SDAN yesterday. Alicia, maybe you shared that with your members, but we did during our discussion have some discussion about the family of staff and the participant agreement forms. And during that, our meeting, Alicia and others shared some thoughts or some recommendations related to some items that they thought maybe we should consider revising. And Carol shared that with us this morning. So thank you so much for sharing that. We will look at that, and based on that and our considerations, I just wanted to share that there may be some changes or edits coming to the form, right, after we have an opportunity to look at that. So just please keep that in mind. So what I'm sharing today would be what we presented on Monday. And I also think that it's important that, as we review the opportunities to use relatives as staff and establish a participant agreement. So we're going to talk about that today. And as you're considering that in your membership, I want to suggest that people first think and prioritize and consider whether they want to continue to use the relatives hired during the public health emergency as staff for those allowable services that have not been already included in an approved PCP, right? Because as the department is shared in our communications, the DDA's Appendix K is unwinding, and therefore the family of staff form must be completed and submitted by the case manager to the FMS before December 30th. And so just really want to emphasize that so that we make sure that we don't have any disruption of that. And we have this great opportunity, that we shared and we can discuss today about the participant agreement. And I know you may have several questions related to that. So looking forward to hearing those. But I also wanted to acknowledge and, share with you that, as each participant's circumstances and their own choices will differ, right? No two people are alike. And so it's really important for participants and teams to discuss the options to use relatives of staff, and also that team approach for employer and budget responsibilities. And it's important that the participant and teams recognize that the participant is always at the center of planning a vision for their personally defined good life. So through those discussions, and you're looking at relatives and maybe assigning an agent on your behalf, the participant is always the center of that. And we want to make sure that we continue to emphasize that. And we know that we talked about on Monday and some of the questions that some of the discussions that teams will have, really need to include those potential conflicts of interest when using either a relative or a team member under the participant agreement. And as we talked about Monday, and just want to remind people, the team should be discussing those potential conflicts and identify some checks and balances to put in place. And one of them could be, looking and exploring the use of a neutral third-party support broker, right? So that's an option that the teams can think about. The other thing that we wanted to share is it's also important to note that the task associated with the participant agreement, if you're assigning team members to do certain employer or budget authority tasks for you, that those tasks that they're performing are not billable or paid tasks, okay? This means anyone acting as your agent performing those employer and budget responsibilities is not paid to help provide that, and cannot bill on a timesheet or invoice. And so the last thing I wanted to share, and then I'll pull up the screen and we can review quickly the information, is we are reviewing the questions that we got on Monday. We weren't able to go through them all during the webinar, and we're organizing them, and we'll be adding the questions that apply to most stakeholders in our DDA frequently asked question document that's on the webpage. And so we're still kind of reviewing and finalizing those. So Alicia, is it okay to share my screen to go through the information quickly?
Yes. Ginger, can you make Rhonda host? There you go.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Can you see a slide that says family of staff? Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Okay, just a few reminders, and I know you have the presentation, but for family as staff, moving forward outside the Appendix K opportunities, there are specific services for which a relative can provide those services, and they're listed here on the screen for you just as a reference, and also in our presentation on Monday. In our presentation, we talked about when to use it. I bolded on this slide that we had from our webinar, that really the family of staff form should be used when participant is hiring a relative, so newly hiring a relative to provide a approved DDA eligible service. When the participant is submitting a person-centered plan, so that next annual plan, a revised plan, that would be the great opportunity to update that form. And the participant wants to continue to use a relative that was hired during that public health emergency, so that unwinding that we just talked about. And that needs to be submitted to the CCS. One of the questions, Alicia, that you shared with us, and I think maybe Carol also sent, was any individual who included having family as staff work for them in a DDA approved plan do not need to complete this form, correct? And so yes, that is correct. If a participant previously completed the family of staff form process for a relative is noted in a DDA approved plan, then you do not need to take any action related to that relative until your next annual revised plan, right? So if they're already in there, no worries, don't need to do anything at this point. But again, if you hired a relative during the public health emergency, they're not already in a family of staff form or in your approved plan. That's where I was suggesting that you might want to prioritize your focus. The family of staff form, we've got the link that we shared in our presentation. You've got the different options. Options is that the person does not want to hire a relative, and that's great. If that's the choice that the person wants, basically that gets selected and it gets signed and moved forward. There's two other options. You can hire a relative as a support broker, and you can hire a relative for direct support staff. One of the questions and comments we got related to support brokers. And so it was the question we got was that the form states that a support broker is necessary when hiring family or guardians as staff, but today you stated the support brokers are optional. Please explain. And so we had a conversation with Alicia and the team yesterday, and we wanted to share that a couple things. As we noted in our presentation on Monday, if a participant has relatives working as staff and they choose to have a support broker, that support broker must be a neutral third party, so a non-relative, right? If a participant who hires relatives, we are noting that we're not obligating them or mandating that a support broker be hired. We really support the choice of the participant to make that decision because support broker is an optional service. Based on our discussion yesterday with Alicia and the team, we will update the form to clarify that hiring a support broker as a neutral third-party non-relative may be needed to address potential conflicts of interest and establish those checks and balances, but we're not mandating it or requiring that. On the form, just a reminder that there is a chart that needs to be completed. We shared the importance of making sure the information is all complete, as some of the FMSs are reporting getting forms that are not complete. So we want to make sure we got the name of the relative, what the relationship is. So are they a parent, step-parent, sibling, what job they're going to have. And on the form, we've got those examples for you to look at. The rate of pay should be noted and number of hours per week. And as we shared during the webinar, it's really important to work with your team related to those services, because some of the services have specific service units and limitations. The other part of the form includes some boxes where we're asking you to provide some additional information, and always, again, keeping the person at the center. So, you know, talking about how that relative is going to support the person for to be more integrated in their community, increase independence and such. So just really looking at that information and the strategy to really expand the person's opportunities to work with different people and to be supported in their community. The form also includes some check boxes, and those boxes are, you know, really need to be reviewed by the person and the team. And we want to make sure that we've got some assurances, or what we call attestations, that these requirements are being met as noted in our program. And then there's the signature pages. So opportunity for people to sign based on if legal guardians or designated representatives are used. I want to again stress the importance of that Appendix K flexibility and the unwinding, because again, our time is moving quick, and we need to make sure that if you're choosing to maintain a relative hired during the public health emergency who has not been noted in your approved plan as family of staff, that we really want to prioritize and get that moving forward. Again, this lists the services that are available for that. And if you hired a family member for a service not reflected on the slide, then you really want to start talking to your team and explore other options to hire other staff, a vendor or a provider. This is just that process. You know, anybody can complete that form, but it's important that the form goes to the CCS So they're going to confirm that that's your choice of the participant. And then they're going to process that form. We've kind of streamlined that so that it can go forward quickly and get to the FMS. So now I'm going to pivot to the participant agreement and just go through that pretty quickly. For the participant agreement, the form is again available online. There's the opportunity to select the employer as the participant, being the one responsible for those specific tasks. The participant can also decide to use a team approach and select a team member or team members that they would indicate on the form. One of the suggestions that we received from Carol this morning, or from the team, was to consider having the ability to select both the participant and the team member, and to then have a statement that would note that if a team member was selected, that they would be the point of contact for that specific task. So thank you for sharing that. That's one of the items that we're looking at. And from that, if that moves forward, then this form would be updated to reflect that. But just to kind of share, that may be a new opportunity to be able to select both options. So some things, just a reminder that when you're using a participant agreement, it's really important that everybody that you choose understands the rules and the requirements that we have in our waivers, so that we make sure that we're in compliance with those standards. And again, must commit to honoring the rights of the participant. And those services need to be provided related to the agreement, and that the team members, again, can be added at any time, and it can be expanded at any time. The agreement could last for 12 months. It could be ended earlier. It could be revised. And that's really that team process where you would have those discussions. So again, the participant is in the driver's seat, supported by their team, and can make changes and adjustments. The process we shared, that the CCS has a role here. We want to make sure that the participants' preferences and it's in their best interest. They would be updating those agreements for changes. We're asking that the agreement be reviewed quarterly to make sure that it's meeting the needs and any adjustments that are needed, and make sure those roles and responsibilities are understood by all. And then, opportunity to look at any conflicts, those checks and balances that may have been put in place, and to make some adjustments. This is again a screenshot of the participant agreement, the different options that are noted there that participants can use. We reviewed them on Monday, but I think you have them. And then the opportunity to actually list the different team members is noted on the form. Again, we had a slide about conflict of interest. So just really important to have that discussion to make sure the person's voice and is the center of those decisions is noted there, and those opportunities for checks and balances to include, the option to consider a third-party neutral support broker. Also noted with the tasks that are noted here, again, the form may be adjusted to reflect the opportunity to select both, but these are different tasks that could be asked a team member to act as an agent of the participant. And then we have the signature pages where we would want the team members and associated people to sign so that you've got that agreement. And then a couple of questions, and then the follow-up question that we had was related to family members, maybe in dual roles. How is that navigated? What is and is not allowed? And so this is just a potential option. Again, the team process really is important, so that there's further discussion about team members and who would be asked and considered to act as the agent in those tasks, and then to explore the potential conflicts and checks and balances. We also noted on Monday that if a legal guardian is paid staff, do they sign the timesheet? We said no, as this is a conflict of interest. And then we received a follow-up question, who signs the timesheet if the legal guardian is staff, since you said they cannot because it's a conflict. Again, another team member can be identified to help suggest or aid in their decision-making process. including signing timesheets, which is noted on the participant agreement. So those are some of the additional discussions that the team can have. And then just a reminder that if there was going to be any updates, it can happen during the year by simply submitting an email to the regional office. And we included the same slide from Monday. And then we just a reminder that we've got those resources on the webpage. So turning it over to you, Alicia, hopefully that was a brief overview to help kind of support this.
It was very helpful. I've asked Liz to kind of review some of the chat and try to figure out which questions maybe apply to the most people, since we have limited of your time. So Liz, you want to start?
Sure. Hi, Rhonda. Thanks for joining us.
Hi.
And everybody who's come to join us. There's a lot of people here, so it's exciting. I guess there's a ton of questions. I'm going to try to get to the most pertinent ones, and we'll try to follow up on the other ones on a different way. The first would be, I think the easiest way to ask the question is if you could tell us what family members cannot be paid as staff, like, there's concern that guardians can't be, but they can, as you just said. Could you just summarize like what people should look for who can't be paid? That might be the easiest way to approach the question.
Yeah, so I think that in terms of what we're talking about today as relatives or family of staff, as noted on the form, it can be a parent, a step parent, and it can be adopted parents, it can be siblings. So for those services that we listed on the slide, for relatives, as for the family of staff form, those are the ones that can provide those services. The waiver includes the flexibility to have legal guardians and legally responsible persons, for which a guardian would be one. And those are noted within the waiver program. So maybe what we could do is explore maybe a chart to be able to pull that out to show as a reference for people to see. But for the family as staff form, we're really talking about relatives. It's on the form. So parents, adoptive parents, foster parents, and siblings would be the ones for the relatives.
Sure, but what criteria would prevent someone from being paid as staff?
I'm sorry, you're breaking up on my screen.
I can try to rephrase, because I'm breaking up on mine too. So I think what Liz is trying to get at is under what circumstances can
what criteria would prevent someone?
So
Liz, I think
what criteria would prevent someone from being a staff member? Is that what you're asking me, Liz?
for being paid staff. So I think what she's saying is, I think what she's getting at is, are there, under what circumstances could you not be a paid staff member? And I think that's referring to the DR perhaps, and the support worker who is also a family member. But I think that's the clarification points.
Right. So I took the slide out, but in our Monday presentation, we noted specifically some language from the waiver that's noted in Appendix C. And we talk about potential conflicts there, or the waiver that specifically states that if a relative is performing certain functions, then they can't be the support broker or vice versa. And so that's specifically noted in the waiver application.
Let me just clarify again, because if a person were to select option 3 as a designated representative, then their spouse and the participant siblings can't work as paid staff too. So those are the two circumstances. If you are a family member as a support broker, or if you're a designated representative as your parent or a sibling, then none of the other parents or siblings can work. Is that pretty much sum it up?
Yes, based on what I'm understanding Liz's question, yes.
Okay, I think that's, okay. Now you're not breaking up anymore. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I had something else running. Okay, thank you for that. I think another question came up. It was, on the 40 hours, if you can hear me, we understand that, well, let me ask this one first. The people would like to know if you had family of staff prior to Appendix K, if the family of staff form has to be redone, or is it only for people who came on during Appendix K?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we were in the presentation, what we talked about today, let me just review. If you've already completed a family of staff form for a relative already hired that's in an approved PCP, you don't need to redo the form for them right now. But if you hired someone during the public health emergency and you want to continue to use them for allowable service, then you want to complete that form. And then going forward with the next plan, an annual revised plan, that's when you would just, use that as part of that planning process and complete it. But if you don't have any new family of staff, you don't have to complete that form.
Right, thank you.
And-
And also we understand that after Appendix K ends, that there's a limit of 40 hours for a family member to provide services. And we just want to confirm that there are, people with higher needs, that can be increased if necessary.
Oh, absolutely.
From 40 hours per week.
Yeah, absolutely. So the waiver currently states, and we have it on the form, it actually says that, up to 40 hours unless otherwise authorized by DDA. So that means that people can go above that. It just needs to be authorized by the DDA. So that is an option, and that has been approved for other people. So yes, that's an opportunity.
Okay, great. Thank you. And there was a question, I guess, on the form, I don't have the form in front of me, where if, I guess it's more technical, if you have more than one team member who, and I think when you look at the form again, you might want to keep this in mind when you're revising it. If more than one team member per task, I guess that they felt that there wasn't a way to really indicate that on the form. So if you can, when you revise it, if you can look at it from that people might want to have a team member do more than one task.
Yeah, thank you for that feedback. I know that the suggested edits we got today didn't include that, but really the note noted that if a participant was checked and a team member, that the understanding would be that team member would be the point of contact. So I think we'd have to figure out if there's more than people, then who's the point of contact, because that's really what we want to be able to do is support and have a point of contact versus 2 or 3 team members. But thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
We'll take that back. That's another suggestion to look at.
I think
Okay,
one
yeah.
of the other issues with that is, one of the other questions I saw related is whether a team member can do more than one task, can assist with more than one task. And I believe the answer is yes. Is that
Yes,
correct?
absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
you can
And-
use one team member or multiple team members. They can have multiple, it's totally up to the person.
Okay. And then somebody else is asking, does the family of staff form need to be filled out even if you're not using family as staff?
Yeah, so the option I think noted on there is that, no, I'm not going to. So yes, it needs to be completed and then signed. You don't have to do anything else. You just sign it and then get it to the CCS.
So am I right to suggest that both the family of staff form and the participant agreement will be a part of all future annual person-centered plan forms? So it will be a part of that whole thing anytime there's a renewal. Is that accurate?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, we're around it. It's my understanding that persons who are SSI representative payees cannot be paid support workers who are family. Is that correct?
I'm happy to take that back and look at that a little bit more related to that. I don't know that I have anything that I can share with you at this point. I can't point to anything in writing, so I'll have to review the waiver and consult with our attorneys.
Okay.
Because we
Okay.
don't specifically talk about SSI. You know, we talk about
believe-
legally responsible people. And so it's the terminology that we have to be aware of.
The
Right,
two
so
aren't,
we're-
I mean, I think the two programs aren't actually related to each other at all. And the feedback we've gotten in the past is that rep pay for SSI and SSDI is not relevant to the DDA waivers in any way.
Sounds like it, yeah. Okay, great. So that's not an issue.
So somebody's saying if a participant is under guardianship, then only the option on the form is option 2. Is that correct? So I have my answer, Rhonda, but I'll let you say yours.
Yeah, you know, if there's a legal guardian, I believe that's noted as option 2. And so you would want to select that if there's a legal guardian for that.
Or couldn't you suggest, I would assume that you can also select option 4 and have various people help the participant with the tasks.
I think, again, what I emphasized at the beginning, I want to share again, is that the team needs to have those discussions, right? And
Right.
depending on the guardianship and what's involved in that guardianship, because there's different decision-making strategies and things related to that, that needs to be the discussion at that level, and then you can look at the options.
Right. So I guess just to reiterate, I think that the team approach here is what DDA has is promoting, and it's something that SDAN members have been, you know, wanting from the beginning, that the participant drives the program, and that anyone can self-direct with the right supports. And in order to foster the participant actually doing his good life the way he or she intends to, it might require additional assistance and support from various team members. And so if that is the case for your team, option 4 might be your better bet. But again, very person-centered and part of a team conversation.
So Alicia, I've got to go to my next meeting. It was my understanding from 12:30 to 1, and I don't, you know, I'm sorry that we don't have more time, but if you want
That's
to share the questions, it would be helpful to organize them so that they're, you know, kind of similar. That would be great. And then we're happy to look at them and consider them for inclusion in the FAQ. But really appreciate the opportunity to meet with you guys and your support and great conversations and questions. So please, we look forward to getting that. Is there anything before I go that?
No, I wanted to say thank you, and we will go through the chat box and forward on to you any questions that didn't get answered today. And the Monday's session was recorded and on your website. Is that accurate? Is that right?
It is.
So
Yeah,
anybody
it's
who
on
missed Monday's session can go back and listen to that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Rhonda. If anybody else wants to stay on, we can continue the conversation. And Rhonda, I appreciate your time and your energy and your efforts. And I'm sure we'll be talking soon.
Okay, great. Have a good holiday, everybody.
You too. Bye.
Thank you, Rhonda. Bye.
Are there any other issues that came up that we can, you know, address now?
Yeah, I think now that it's just us, you know, to reiterate that a lot of people were concerned that being an SSI representative payee meant you couldn't be staff, and that's not true. The thing in the waiver is it does come up in the waiver if you are a support broker and family, and you are the support broker for your participant, and you are the representative payee, you cannot be paid to be a support broker. You can still be a support broker, you just have to be their unpaid support broker. That's what the waiver says. So I'm very clear on that. And also, Rhonda confirmed that the 2 criteria where you can't get paid is when you are a designated representative.
It's right up on the screen right now. So
And,
the
yeah,
designated
those two.
representative and support broker are family members, then no other family
Yeah.
members can be paid staff.
Right. So those are the two really important things to keep in mind in all this. If
Right.
you want to be paid as staff.
So
Yeah.
somebody's asking, why does a support broker who doesn't provide direct support need to have CPR first aid? We don't know the answer. We asked that question when we spoke to DDA yesterday. I guess the answer is it's in the waiver that way right now, but it is certainly something that we can suggest be changed for next round, because we didn't think it made a lot of sense either. And so again, Rhonda spoke about potential conflicts, and I just think we all want to be careful to use other team members to ensure that there always an extra set of eyes on anything that could be perceived from the outside as dubious. We do have one other question here. We have gotten the word from somebody that, or a few people really, that specialized vehicles, if a family has specialized a vehicle that needs to be used to transport a participant around, and they have not been able to receive mileage, if that is your circumstance, we are looking to see if there are a significant number of people who have that issue, to pretty much get you guys together and to inform DDA of this issue and the recommendation and solution, and we can support that too. So if you do have a specialized vehicle that you aren't able to get a mileage reimbursement for, please email us at info@marylandsds.org, and we'll try to get you all together. So I'm just looking at the chat boxes. If an individual's family is paid staff from before Appendix K, does the old family of staff form need to be reused? Or okay, so this is my understanding, Katrina and everybody else, because I had this question myself. I think for simplicity's sake, if you have an approved PCP with family members named and a family as staff, the old form, you're clear. If you didn't hire anybody during the Appendix K. If you hired somebody during the Appendix K and or don't have a family as staff form, and a lot of people, CCSs did not include a family as staff form with their PCP, be safe and just fill it out. I think that will work best for the FMS, and you will be covering your bases with DDA. It isn't anything that needs to be approved. So you just need to fill it out, document it, and send it in. So somebody asked about the circumstances under which a family member can be paid over 40 hours. What are the qualifications? And I don't think we know.
There is
and it
no
would
And need, you'll have to document the need in the PCP. Sorry, Lori.
So somebody's asking, if you had paid family as support staff before the pandemic, do you need to hire a third-party broker? And I would say the answer really is you need to make sure that there's no conflict. So don't sign your own timesheets. If it's just you and the participant, and the participant's not signing your timesheet, then you probably should. You might want to consider having some third-party person, a support broker or someone else on your team, and give them that task.
Hey, Alicia, I should know this, but I'm not 100% sure. Is the support broker fee coming out of the budget, or is it not? Or it's just,
It no longer
I've heard it
does.
explained, but I can't articulate it.
It
Yeah,
used to.
so if you want a support broker, get a support broker.
It won't come out of your of the participants' budgeted their budgeted needs funds. So it will be added to your budget as a separate line item.
Right.
So yeah,
So it
there's
doesn't
really
take
no
away from
financial
your-
reason not to have one.
Right.
I just want to make one clarification. The waiver still says support brokers cannot sign timesheets. So, and something Rhonda said, I feel we need clarification for. She said that anybody on that list, unless I misunderstood her, that was the designated person to do that task, cannot be paid to do that task, which would essentially eliminate the support broker doing it unless the support broker is doing it for free. So there's a lot of questions and there's a lot of confusion just in the questions that I've been reading that we're going to have to tease out and give back to them.
Right.
But yes, rep payees can work as paid staff. I know there's a lot of misinformation out there about that. And they cannot be a support broker. Let's see. I'm just trying to skip through these things. There was somebody about where's the meeting on December 29th. It's an online meeting, so you only have to do that. And then there was something that parents and children are family too, not according to the waiver definition that is currently in effect. The only things that are relatives in the current waiver are parents, parents and siblings. So children of the person are not considered family as staff, according to the current waiver. But for that exclusion form, there's a couple different things going on here. And no family as staff does not end on December 31st. It's the flexibilities are what's ending.
The Appendix K flexibility.
Appendix K
ends.
flexibilities.
Could you clarify something about who is considered family? Like we have uncles, aunties, the mom, legally, who is considered as family?
Per the waiver definition, it's parents, step-parents, foster parents, and siblings. That's it.
Right.
And that's good because then there's other people are treated like just normal staff. There's no restrictions on the number of hours that they can work.
Okay, because we've been, we are new to the process, and thank you so much for this session. But we've been having the impression that if you're a family of any kind, you are, you are not considered as regular staff. So it just kind of gives us like a little bit of concern right there. So it's good
I can't give you the page number right now, but I'm going to ask the rest of us for help. It's in Appendix C, I believe.
The definition, it is actually simple, what Carol just said. So if family is considered parents and step-parents and siblings of the participant. So your aunts and uncles, grandparents, cousins are not considered family for the purposes we're talking about today.
Okay, thank you.
Right, Carol?
Sure. So one thing Rhonda said to me kind of really concerned me, so we'll be following back up with that. And I'm circled as many things as I could. It says, can you define the role / title of paid staff? Paid staff is somebody that's paid under one of the waiver services like personal supports, community development, job. I mean, they're hired as an employee. I think most support brokers are not hired as employees, but there may be some that are. But we still have to have CPR first aid by the end of December.
Did you say CPR and first aid?
By the end of September. Support brokers still, and any staff hired during Appendix K that didn't have it has to have it by the end of December. But if your renewal, if your current certification is current, then you don't have to do it until it expires.
If a employee is limited to 40 hours, let's say after December 31st, but that employee sometimes has to substitute for another employee or for a vendor who can't show up for their personal support hours, can they automatically go over 40, or do they have to seek approval from DDA for that kind of circumstance?
The employee is not a family member.
No,
As we defined it.
the employee is a family member and is usually, let's say, budgeted for 20 hours a week. And another employee or a vendor is budgeted for 25 hours a week. But that second one takes vacation for a week, for 2 weeks. Who sits in? Well, the first one only has 20 hours. But they
You
have
can only go
now
up to
do
40
20.
hours.
So
You would
I understand,
probably
sir.
have to have that, that would have to be pre-approved. I don't think you could get that approved on the spot, but if you know that's coming, I would write that, that may be one reason. That's one of the things we're gonna need you to tell us is you ask for these approvals and you don't get them, then having it in the waiver that except when approved by DDA doesn't mean much if it never
Well,
gets approved.
what I'd like to do is that can happen over a whole year. I would like not to have to ask for approval every time it comes. I would like
So
to
you can,
take that.
let me just
say-
interrupt for a second, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
You can put that, any exceptions to the 40-hour family rule could be put into your person-centered plan and approved that way. But otherwise, family family as paid staff can't work more than 40 hours without a DDA prior approval. So talk to your CCS, I think, and try to fix it that way. We really can't get into individual issues like this too much because we're really trying to serve as many people as possible.
Well,
But feel
just
free
for
to
fun,
email us.
Let me just ask one further version of that. Well, conversely, you could submit a budget mod to DDA that spells that out for the future without having put it into the PCP at the beginning of the year.
I think you'd have to
You
talk to your CCS
revise-
for that.
You can revise your PCP at any time, but right now that you have to revise the whole PCP. They're not doing plan mods anymore. That's done. So you need to get in touch with your CCS, arrange a meeting to modify your plan to include that aspect, which shouldn't be that hard. We think it's onerous to have to revise the whole plan, but that's currently what's happening.
I have a question. This is Paulette. My question is, if the individual is, even if they're a family member or not, living and residing in the home of the resident if they're a resident in the home of the participant, why are they being treated as, and they qualify for difficulty of care? They're not employees. They're getting a payment that is not considered a salary. So why are they considered employees? And if they work more than 40 hours, why do they have to get overtime?
Tracy, Tracy, are you still there?
Actually, can I say something, Carol?
Sure.
Okay, the law is in the state of Maryland, any employee working more than 40 hours a week, or the stipulation that they have at this time, is allowed to receive overtime. What DDA is saying is that we are not supposed to schedule anyone for overtime. But if that happens, like in the case.
Okay, but what I'm saying, I'm not talking about an employee. I am talking about if you check on the sheet that you live with the resident and you are considered, and you are providing services that are being paid by a Medicaid, under a Medicaid waiver. Okay, you fall under the definition of providing difficulty of care services. That is a type of service. And it specifically says in its definition that the person is not an employee. They're getting difficulty of care payments. And so I don't want to go into a long discussion about it. I just want to bring that to folks' attention that perhaps we need to read about the difficulty of care payments and make sure that individuals that are being paid who are residing in the home, okay, are not treated as employees. And that could eliminate some of the problem for some of the participants.
I think what you might be referring to has to do with fringe benefits. It's not, and I'd have to really read up on it, but I know you're ringing a bell here, but that's the rule. You are living in the home and you're being paid. You don't have to pay the taxes, the fringe benefit taxes. Carol, you're the expert on this.
No, I'm really not. I'm looking at,
to pay those taxes.
it says it's not, I'm looking at Stephanie Watkins, and Stephanie, you can chime in if you want to. She was a benefits counselor. It says that she says it's not wages, but difficulty of care payment, but she doesn't think it says they're not an employee. So this is definitely an area we have to do more research in. And it's been one of those gray areas since it started, actually.
Right, because you don't pay wages to non-employees.
Yeah.
So if it's a payment, okay, that is not considered a wage, then the person receiving the payment is not considered an employee.
Right, and that's come up for people personally for their own tax purposes, and it doesn't count toward their retirement and all that stuff. So it's a huge issue. So if anybody wants to start a work group on that, let us know.
I won't do a work group, but I'll send a little paper, a white paper in on it, because I put it down in notes for
that'd
myself.
Be awesome.
Yeah,
that would be great. Thank you.
Okay,
I
think at this point we need to be respectful of everybody's time, and feel free to email us at info@marylandsds.org with additional questions. We will be sending all of the remaining questions to Rhonda for her response.
I can never get my questions ever answered.
What is your question?
If it's on the, please make sure it's in the chat, and if it's in the chat, we will definitely ask for it to be answered for you. At this point, though, I think we just need to stop the meeting and thank you. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you all for helping us grow and helping us be able to connect with DDA in a meaningful way, because our membership has grown so nicely and so large. I think we have their ear often, and we would love your help to help us continue to grow by asking people to join us, marylandsds.org. That also has links to the videos about self-direction and about being a direct support professional. We invite you to like our Facebook pages, host a fundraiser perhaps, volunteer for a project, make a donation. We are really making a difference, and it is because of you all. And so I just want to say thank you again. We know that this is these two new forms causing a lot of anxiety for all of us. It's the first time out of the box. I don't think anybody knows exactly how they're going to work until we all use them and find the glitches. So please do be in touch with us about any glitches you find, and we will endeavor to clarify with DDA of what their intent is. Our next SDAN meeting is from the ARC Center for Future Planning, discussing the process of future planning for participants, and they have a bunch of free resources, and that's Thursday, January 20th, 2022, if you can believe that, coming around the corner. So you will get an email with a registration link for that one. Again, thank you so very much to all of our membership. We appreciate you, and look forward to work with you throughout the next year. Thanks so much.